The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Welcome back to Rutland, folks. Now, if you mention the county of Rutland to the average person, the first thing they're probably going to think of is Rutland Water, the big reservoir that's kind of in the middle of the county. It's not quite in the middle, but it's close, isn't it? This here is the village that sits at the dam end of Rutland Water. Its name is Empingham. Empingham, homestead of Empus people. This weekend we're continuing with Rutland, and in this video we'll get our first look at the county's best known water feature. It's a massive reservoir, Europe's largest man-made one no less, that was formed by damming the River Gwash. Everybody knows it today as Rutland Water. A little known fact, however, is that Rutland Water used to have a different name. For a short period it was instead known as Empingham Reservoir. That name was taken from its nearest village, Empingham, which is where we are today. Empingham is a model village, and its current layout is largely the work of Gilbert Heathcote. When he inherited the Normanton estate in 1867, Empingham was far from being a model village. Instead, it was in a dilapidated state and many of the houses were in ruins. By the end of the 19th century, he transformed it, earning him the justifiable nickname, the Building Earl. It's known for being the village at the dam end of Rutland Water. When the dam was under construction in the early 1970s, archaeological excavations confirmed that this area had been occupied for many centuries. Discoveries included traces of Iron Age settlement, 2 Romano-British farming settlements, and some Anglo-Saxon cemeteries. The area where the cemeteries were found is now a very popular tourist spot in the summertime. Did you know that Rutland Water has a beach which was recently given a Blue Flag Award? If you didn't, you do now. Get your bikini on, let's go for a swim. Now, before we get going around Empingham, we first have to cover RAF Woolfox Lodge. Because of the way parish boundaries are, and we know they're weird by now, this is partially within Empingham despite being quite a distance from the actual village. The rest is within Greetham. RAF Woolfox Lodge is next to the A1. It was open from 1940 until 1966. Woolfox opened as a reserve landing ground for RAF Cottesmore and then became a satellite to RAF North Luffenham in 1941. Full station status was granted from June 1943. The wartime airfield comprised 3 tarmac runways, 1 Type B1 hangar and 4 T2 aircraft hangars. There was temporary accommodation for 1,149 male and 252 female personnel. Woolfox Lodge was used in later years as a relief landing ground, but the runways deteriorated to such a degree that it had to be closed to flying by the spring of 1954. In 1960, a Bristol Bloodhound surface-to-air missile site under RAF 62 Squadron was positioned in a secure area adjacent to the A1 road near the former technical site. The site is now used for agriculture and by the Woolfox Depot. The landowner in 2019 proposed it as a site for a possible garden village, but as yet nothing's been built. Woolfox is also known quite well to the keen golfer. It features an 18-hole golf course and driving range. It's situated around some beautiful lakes and a 10-bay covered driving range. In all, it covers 180 acres of the rural Rutland landscape. There can be no denying that Empingham is a village with a watery theme. It's the one that sits at the dam end of Rutland Water, and part of the reservoir's coastline falls within Empingham Parish. That's for later. To begin with, there's a much less well-known water feature to see. This is the North Brook. It marks the end of the village to the east, although traditionally it's believed Empingham extended southward as far as the River Gwash and eastwards as far as Chapel Hill. The latter had an actual chapel in a small enclosure known as Chapel Spinney. Records suggest it was dedicated to St Botolph. The North Brook meets the River Gwash just south of where we are now. We're heading north and then westwards primarily into the village. Well, I have to admit, I was quite impressed with the brook there. I wasn't expecting much from it, to be honest with you, but it was quite nice, wasn't it? Little waterfalls, little eddies in the water there. Very deep water and very crystal clear as well. Lovely, absolutely lovely. If that's the sign of things to come, then I'm going to enjoy the rest of this walk. Next up, we've got the school, which you can see there. Empingham Primary School is one of the newest in Rutland. It was built in 2019 to replace the former Empingham C of E Primary School elsewhere in the village. That building dated back to 1838 and was expanded in 1872. We'll see it in a bit. Empingham's current school is sponsored and supported by the Rutland Learning Trust. It still retains its church ties, having strong links to St Peter's Church just around the corner. It's around the playing fields for us next, and that means we're heading for one of Empingham's 2 Dovecotes. Okay, so everything up to now has been uphill. I wasn't expecting that here in Empingham. I thought this was, generally speaking, quite flat, but it's not. It's quite steep in places as well. So I've climbed up to this particular point here. You can see the village, or the sort of western end of it, eastern end of it I should say, over there in the distance. And now we're making our way towards one of its most iconic landmarks, and that would be a dovecote. Let's go and check it out. Seen here, this dovecote was built in the 18th century and it's made of coursed rubble stone with a conical roof. Atop it all is a ball and weather vane. Supposedly it has over 700 nestings. Empingham's other dovecote can't be seen from anywhere that's public. It's in the grounds of Prebendal House. Next, we have Empingham Cricket and Social Club. This is one of the oldest cricket clubs in England. The club's first game of cricket was played on September the 18th, 1815 against Knowston, a village in Leicestershire. It ended in a tie. A return game was played on November the 2nd, but the result of that game isn't known. In the late 1900s, regular matches were being played on Thursdays and Saturdays, and the team had their own transport, a horse-drawn wagonette. An interesting game took place in 1901 against Burley House, which Empingham won by 23 runs. The talking point of the match was a disputed decision against Lord Exeter, who was dismissed LBW off the bowling of a lefty around the wicket. By the 1930s, Empingham was fielding 4 cricket teams and there were 3 cricket pitches. Transportation had improved too. The club used a Healy's lorry, which was available for away games, a considerable improvement on the wagonette. In later years, Empingham played as part of a combined team with Exton and Oakham. The only time to date that there hasn't been any cricket in the village during the summertime was during both World Wars. Now we've arrived at the cemetery at the western end of the village. There isn't a lot to say about this as a cemetery, but it does contain the War Memorial. This honours those who served in both World War I and World War II. There are 17 names on it, split 15 and 2 respectively. The memorial is a tall column with a small cross at the top, a square base and 3 tiered hexagonal steps. It was given a Grade 2 listing in 1984. Now, it should be noted that this cemetery isn't the only one Empingham has ever had. When Rutland Water was being constructed, some Anglo-Saxon cemeteries were excavated at Sykes Lane, 1 kilometre west of the present village. They dated from the late 500s to the early 600s AD. The population at that time would have been pagan and prosperous. 3/4 of the graves contained weapons, necklaces, toiletry instruments and brooches. Of 150 human remains found at one site, over a third were children because the average life expectancy back then was just 30 years old. Okay, so far we haven't seen a pub, but Empingham does have one. It's called the White Horse, and it's right behind me. There. Shall we call in for a pint? This is the White Horse on the end of Main Street. Today it's a popular hostelry, but when it was owned by the Normanton estate, it had another role. Petty sessions were held here every Monday to deal with minor criminal matters. More serious legal matters were referred to assizes at Oakham. Those days are gone, and now the White Horse is simply here to serve the village with drinks, and thoroughly lovely it looks too, I might add. We're in one of the oldest parts of Empingham now. This is a model village, the work mainly of the Heathcote baronets. One man was instrumental in its restoration and present-day layout, Gilbert Henry Heathcote, the 6th Baronet. Now we're on Audit Hall Road. This takes its name from the building that's next on our list. Even though the Normanton estate was centred on Normanton itself, it was managed from Empingham, and as lords of the manor, the Heathcote family were responsible for the court baron. That was a local civil court to deal with all matters relating to tenancies and rentals. Leases were for 1 to 5 years and renewed on Lady Day or Michaelmas. On rent days, payment took place here at the Audit Hall, where a steward would preside and keep records. When the Normanton estate was broken up and sold off in 1924, the Audit Hall was retained. It was then presented to the village by the 2nd Earl of Ancaster for use by the community as a village hall. That's the way it stayed ever since. Around the corner now we meet the old school, the one that dates back to 1838. The building is made of coursed rubble stone, much like the Dovecote. It has a tile roof from the 20th century and a stone tablet front and centre that reads, "This school was erected by Sir Gilbert Heathcote, Baronet, and enlarged by Baron Aveland." The dates are given in Roman numerals. This school closed on February the 28th, 2019 and was replaced by the new school we saw earlier. And going hand in hand with the old school is the old schoolhouse, which is right next door. It's the building behind me. We're almost done with this route, but we've still got quite a bit to see, actually, because all Empingham's main landmarks are sort of glued together in one section. They're all centred mainly around the church, which is hiding away over there, and that's next. Among the remaining landmarks is St Peter's Church, which stands in the southern reaches of Empingham with the rectory to the southwest of it. It has an impressive 14th century tower with a small but richly ornamented spire and very tall pinnacles. Otherwise, the exterior is mostly 15th century with striking perpendicular windows. The lancet windows in the south transept and chancel are 13th century, as is most of its fabric. It was a prebendal church under the jurisdiction of the bishops of Lincoln until around 1870. A complete list of the prebendaries dates from 1221 and the vicars and rectors from 1245. These lists can be seen on the west wall. Originally, the walls were covered by paintings. In the south transept, part of a painting of the Virgin Mary can be seen, and in the north transept, so too can the heads of St Anne and St Joachim. Only one window in this church has stained glass. Located above the font, it depicts Simeon holding Jesus with Mary and Anna nearby. Recently, an embroidery depicting peace was hung in the chancel, as was another depicting St Peter's catch of fish in the south porch. This little building is called Primrose Hall. Located on the southern side of Main Street, it was built on land donated by the Heathcote family. It was opened in 1899. So what was it, you ask? Well, the Primrose League was an organisation for spreading conservative principles in Great Britain. It was founded in 1883 in memory of Benjamin Disraeli, and the primrose was his favourite flower, hence the name. It was active until the mid-1990s and was finally wound up in December 2004. Membership of the League was open to women as well as men, although the hall in Empingham was also used as a reading room where men were able to play billiards and cards. It's thought there were Methodists in Empingham by the beginning of the 19th century. By 1818, a house in Church Street was being used for worship, and it was formally licensed by Rutland Quarter Sessions in 1821. A former old chapel, in inverted commas, was used from the 1820s, and that was on the site of what is now number 18 Main Street. It was used for the last time in 1899. The following day, contractors moved in to demolish it, and the stone was sold to defray the cost of erecting the new and present church on land donated by the Earl of Ancaster. This opened in November 1899, when 500 teas were served in the audit hall to celebrate its completion. And one job we haven't done yet is to leave a card on the parish notice board, and here it is, Empingham Parish Council, with a nice little map of the village there. You can see Rutland Water in the corner. You'll find this notice board on the wall at the doctor's surgery. I'll just leave the card if it'll stay on, which it probably won't, but we'll see. No, it's not going to, not on that bit anyway. Let's try a bit further up. Yeah, there we go. Right, that's officially done. Surgery, just to show you, is here on this corner, and my car is parked just down there. Now, we've come all the way around Empingham. We've mentioned it a few times, but we haven't yet seen Rutland Water. We're about to. Here we are then, we're at Rutland Water. You can see it there in the background. This is a massive reservoir, and the history of this place is immense. I could go on at length about the history of Rutland Water. I'm not going to put it all in this episode though, because we will be seeing this loads and loads of times, because loads of parishes border it. So in this particular episode, all I'm going to talk about is the dam, which you can see over there, because Empingham, remember, is at the dam end of Rutland Water, and also this little area here. Now look at that little hut. What do you think that might be? Rutland Water was built in 1975. It was created by damming the valley of the River Gwash near Empingham. This is the dam. During its construction, Rutland Water was known as Empingham Reservoir, due to its proximity to the village. Rutland Water flooded 6 or 7 square kilometres of the Gwash Valley, as well as the side valley, at the head of which lies Oakham, the county town. The only village to survive in the immediate area was Hambleton, which lies on a peninsula in the middle of the reservoir. The Gwash makes a net input to the lake, but its flow downstream is maintained. Most of the stored water is extracted from the River Welland between Tinwell and Stamford, and from the River Nene upstream from Peterborough, a city which is a major user of the water. Because much of the valley is clay, material for the dam was extracted from pits dug within the area that would subsequently be flooded. The clay dam is 115 feet high and around 1,300 yards long. At its base, it's up to 890 yards wide. The finished structure has been landscaped to blend in with the environment, even when viewed from Empingham. Now here's a local secret that's not well known to everyone. Rutland Water might be a reservoir, but it has a beach. This is the area where those Anglo-Saxon cemeteries were found during Rutland Water's construction. Located at the end of Sykes Lane, it's proud to be the first inland bathing water location in England to be awarded the Blue Flag and Seaside Award. Let that sink in for a second. Seaside. We're miles away from the coast here. The beach is one of Rutland Water's most popular attractions, and on hot days it does get very, very busy. So much so that you'd think you were actually at the sea. It even has its own lifeguard, like many coastal resorts do. Everyone can visit the beach, but be aware there are no dogs allowed here. There are plenty of other dog-friendly locations at Rutland Water, and we'll be seeing some of those in future episodes. The sheer size of the reservoir means that we'll be back to it several times. In fact, tomorrow we'll be seeing it again. There is one other thing to talk about here as well, and that's that monument you can see there. Now, I've absolutely no idea what that is, because I didn't do any research about it. But you know what? These things can be found out. The structure is called Alexander's Sculpture, or the Great Tower. In 1979, the International Arts Foundation commissioned a sculptor by the name of Alexander to produce a large-scale monument for Rutland Water. The cost was £50,000 and the site was chosen by the landscape artist who designed the reservoir. It was cast in London and was, at the time, the largest bronze sculpture ever commissioned in Britain. There's been a few more since then, though. Well, it might be a bit cold and a bit grey, a bit miserable because it's December at the moment, but Rutland Water is open all year round. So too is the beach, and if you want to come here, the parking charges is £2 an hour is what it is, unless you're here for less than 15 minutes, in which case it's free. But seriously, who's coming here for less than 15 minutes? Oh wait, me. Time to move on to the next one. Tomorrow's episode will show in a bit more detail the destructiveness of Rutland Water. It might be a fabulous place for a swim or a paddle, but when the gouache was dammed, lots of land was sacrificed, as were buildings. In the next village, we'll see one of the most unique churches in the country, which is actually located in the water. Bye for now. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.